the second episode of the Unscripted Pharmacist.
Yes, that would be you.
That would be me. I'm joined today with Chris Stevenson, and he's an oncology nurse at the hospital. I'm a local pharmacist at the hospital, and we're here to talk about the history of how we got to this point in time where, unfortunately, like, we're so sick. Unfortunately, we feel like we're overweight and we're not moving enough.
Yeah, if you just walk down the street, you see, Americans are famous for being the fat ones. Loud and fat. That's
right.
Us, right.
We're one of the fattest countries, but Mexico's taken us over.
Have they?
Yeah, Mexico's taken us over, and their number one killer is actually diabetes. So that's interesting.
I'm glad that we're talking about this today.
Yeah.
Because Mexico and the United States, brother and sister countries, and food has become a serious problem for us. And we go through our lives and we don't even really think about it too much. This is how I was raised, to eat in a particular way, and I've just continued that, and it's not been healthy for us. We can do better.
Right. You ate whatever your mom cooked.
I did.
Right? And your mom was like, hey, I'm doing the right thing. And she was following the advice. She's eating a low-fat diet.
Yes.
My mom, the low-fat diet all day, right?
That's what we were taught.
Diet sodas and, eating the margarine that we were eating. Remember the I can't believe it's not butter.
Don't eat butter.
Yes. My dad ate butter, and that was that was bad for us. So, how did we get here? How did we end up with half the population being either pre-diabetic or diabetic?
Yeah, it's true.
1 and 2.
All right, before we get into the big picture, you have a personal story because it's fairly obvious, folks. He's in great shape.
Yeah.
He does. He's a stand-up paddleboard racer. Okay, and you're thin and lean. And are you in the best shape of your life?
I would say yes, actually.
But you weren't at one point.
I wasn't.
There was a transformation there I want you to tell people about.
I have lost officially 50 pounds, okay? But that 50 pounds, what was it? Did you lose fat mass? I mean, because it's not just the scale and the weight, right? Mm-hmm. We're trying to lose fat mass, but we're trying to gain muscle at the same time. So I could actually say I'm stronger now than I was when I was in high school. I am at my high school body weight, right? I would say I'm healthier than when I was in high school. I'm not as fast. That's something I probably wish I had. But
you did age a little bit.
Yeah, I did a little bit.
So over what period of time did you make this transformation?
Oh, shoot. The picture that I have is probably 2014. It's the majority of the weight was lost over probably a 2-year period.
Okay, so you went from normal American pudgy guy.
Yeah.
Like me.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, not as bad. No, sorry. Much worse than you. Oops, sorry. No. You don't weigh that much. I was much bigger here.
So I've been telling people, I'm talking to Kyle, and I'm starting to understand his program and follow his program, and that I'm the target audience because I'm 62 years old. I'm 5'8", and I weigh about 175, and I got the what I call the American, beer belly. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm probably in better shape than all of my friends. Okay. Mm-hmm. And yet I know I can do better. I can live a healthier, more fruitful life. Okay. If I were to change my diet, and I love sugar. I've come to realize it's because of an addiction. To me, sugar is like, I never did heroin, but I'm going to guess it would be like
it's pretty similar.
Heroin.
Not that far off.
It's not. In fact, in doing my research, I've heard that being addicted to sugar is a more powerful addiction than heroin or cocaine.
Right. And how do we reverse?
Crazy?
How do we reverse? How do we reverse heroin? Use Narcan, naloxone.
Right.
Well, oddly enough, that naloxone may actually help for sugar addiction, by the way. And it's a very similar reward pathway. So it keeps strengthening that behavior of grabbing that quick fix of that sugar.
I did not know this about Narcan.
Yeah. It's naloxone, or naltrexone as well.
All right.
But what I started doing was just kind of like what you're in the same position that you're in. Like, how can I get better?
Yeah.
Well, how can I experiment on what I've started to learn here? So I just was how can I get faster? How can I be better at paddleboarding? How can I increase stamina? How can I increase my strength?
And I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so it was like, okay, what's the optimal diet?
Yeah.
You're looking for optimal.
I am. And I also want to know, how did we get here?
How did we get to be so, oh man.
Because
the sequence of events is horrible.
It seems so obvious to me that
Yeah.
like we know we eat too much sugar and we have an addiction to sugar, and there are problems where I'm being marketed to eat more sugar, and what's available to me is laden with sugar. I know all this cognitively, I know this, and yet still I'm addicted to it. Okay, so walk me through.
You don't look like the type of person that's at the average sugar intake for an American, because the average sugar intake is over 100 pounds.
All right, dude.
That's a lot. 2 pounds a week.
My favorite food in the world is candy corn. I kid you not.
Well, that's an easy one.
Yeah.
That's disgusting. But anyway, no, I'm just kidding.
How did we get to this place?
How did we get, oh man, there's so many, kind of this sequence of events that created this perfect storm, but the storm was created essentially because of money, right? Money is a great motivator.
Money makes the world go round.
Money makes the world go round.
Follow the money.
Yeah, you got the food industry. There's so many different things. But what's crazy is that we knew the answer in the 1800s. We knew what it took to make somebody fat, right? We knew the diet to fix it as well, okay? And that pretty much kind of took us into, we had a lot of influences through science, and with the influence of science on corporations, okay? Who's going to gain here? So there's so many different things to talk about here, but we knew that in order to make somebody fat, and this is important, in about I think it was 1920, and it was Wilhelm Falta who said, in order to fatten somebody up, you needed an intact pancreas. So you think, oh, what the heck? You gotta have a pancreas. So there's something else going on here, right? Other than calories in, calories out, which is what you grew up with, and I grew up with too.
We were always.
If
you want to lose a weight,
thermodynamics.
It's simple.
It's math. You just need to do better math, right?
Okay.
And this is what's frustrating, is that you're the victim. You just don't seem to understand the physics of it all, because calories in equals calories out. And you're going, all right, to lose a pound fat, I gotta run for 4 hours.
Yeah.
Do you run for 4 hours? I can't run for 4 hours. And that's just a pound.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to gain that, between Thanksgiving and Christmas anyways.
Yeah.
Right? So it's just crazy that we're in that mindset, and it's really not our fault. The science wasn't there to you're trying to solve the problem without all of the tools necessary to solve it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Right?
Sorry. So you told me we knew what the cause was in the 1800s.
We did. We knew it was carbohydrates.
And we knew throughout the early 20th century, we knew into the 1960s.
60s, yeah.
And then what happened?
There was, there's some amazing, characters here, some good, some bad. One of which most of the stories start with is a guy by the name of Ansel Keys. Ansel Keys was hardly a scientist. However, he did a study called the 7-Country Study. So 13,000 people all throughout the world looked at their diet. Remember this is post-World War II. Wasn't a lot of meat around in post-World War II. But anyways, so that had a significant impact. So when you look at them and you go, oh, he's not eating very much fat. And look, they don't have any cardiovascular disease. But the problem is when you ignore some of the data. He had data from much more than 7 countries. But he picked the 7 that made a nice straight line. So you had outliers, but you can't really explain the outliers. You had like France, where high-fat diet and low heart disease. Like, how do you explain these outliers? Or do you just exclude them?
So what was
it's kind of easy to just exclude it, right?
What was the conclusion that Keys came to? That
saturated fat caused cardiovascular disease.
But you're saying his study was flawed?
Flawed because he had the data and he refused to use all the data at his disposal. Right. He made a nice straight line and cherry-picked his data. So from there, you've created this saturated fat causes cardiovascular disease.
Wait, did the world adhere to what he's had to say? Did we embrace this?
Well, it was in the 60s, you had a country that was already scared because in 1955, President Eisenhower has his heart attack. And he's in the Oval Office for 10 days, we don't have a president. Oh my gosh, what's gonna happen?
Yeah, that's what,
right? And they're like, it's the sausage and eggs he eats every morning. Like, really? Oh, he used to be a chain smoker, you know? Like Eisenhower wasn't the perfect bill of health, really. So we kind of, it made sense. And you have clogged arteries. It looks like fat.
Yes.
Fat clogs arteries. It must be fat. To me, like, oh man, you've really ignored how amazing the human body is. How amazingly complicated we are, right? So we demonize fat, but at the time, we didn't have the ability to measure much more than just cholesterol. We didn't have a lipid panel. We didn't know how to measure lipoproteins. We didn't know how to measure hormones. We didn't know how to measure a lot of these hormones that are really relevant until just real recently. You know, hormones that are responsible for hunger and weight gain and movement. That's really important. We didn't have that data. So you're trying to like feel around in the dark, right? And only where the light shines. When the answer is sitting over here and you don't have the ability to shine light over here because you don't have the technology yet. So the technology kind of lagged behind, but the theory was already there. When you go into a scientific experiment and you already have a theory and no other theories or no other hypothesis, you're only out to set that hypothesis as true. And that's really what it was. And then the media got involved. Of course, they want a story. They'll produce some sort of study and they'll just take a totally different take on it and send it out to the American people because we need an answer. People are dying from cardiovascular disease, we need an answer. We're also smokers. So we decrease the smoking, that decrease heart disease, but this idea that, man, cardiovascular disease is caused by too much saturated fat and cholesterol, right? But unfortunately, it really wasn't until 1977 when George McGovern and the Senate committee was supposed to come up with dietary recommendations for Americans. And so there, we adopted a food pyramid. And in that food pyramid, at the very bottom, was 6 to 11 servings of grains.
Yes.
That's a lot of grains.
I remember the food pyramid.
It's pretty hard to eat the food pyramid. Yeah.
Yes, it was like grains and fruits and vegetables on the bottom, which was your base. That's what you should be eating the most of. And then it went up from there with different types of things, and the least, what you were supposed to eat the least
was red meat.
Like red meat,
right? Yeah. And we did.
Yeah.
From 1977 on, we reduced our red meat consumption. We reduced eggs because they're all high in saturated fat. Right?
And we believe this. This was the
we
science
believe
at the
this,
time.
which was crazy.
We were told this by our government, of course.
But we demonize fat because fat is so dense. It's so high in calories that you go, okay, well, a pound of fat has, 3,500 calories, right? But a pound of carbohydrates or a pound of protein doesn't. It's not as dense. But if you think about it, if you really understand the Krebs cycle, the biochemistry behind all of it all. Carbon for carbon, it's the same. You're going to get the same energy, well, very similar energy out of both, right? But here's fat. When you look at it, there's no water in it, so it's extremely dense. Carbohydrates and protein have water in them, so they're not as dense. So if you say it's all about calories, well, the fat has the most calories per pound than the fat, than the glucose or the carbohydrates and the proteins.
Right.
So if it's a calorie problem, then fat is a problem because a little scoop of margarine is nowhere. It's several the scoop of margarine is several times more calories
Lots of
than the slice of bread.
Yes, as a backpacker, I can tell you that we want a lot of calories because if we're going to be on the trail all day, and they tell you to just like slather your crackers with oil, okay, and that'll give you a lot of calories.
I totally, I don't subscribe to that mindset at all.
All right, so explain to me then what happened when we were told to reduce the amount of fat in our diet, and the industry, the agriculture that produced those things was, they're now in a position where, the American diet is going to change and they're going to lose revenue. All right.
Right. So you created the low-fat revolution.
Yeah.
Right. It was all about SnackWells. It was all about low-fat, non-fat this, and non-fat milk, and trust me, go look at your labels on non-fat milk. See how many grams of carbs and sugar is in your non-fat milk.
Yes.
Because when you took the fat out, you had to add something back to it. It tastes like garbage. It's like cardboard. Ugh.
Because
right? You have to add sugar to it.
Yeah, we love that taste and that feel. That
it lights up the brain. It's amazing.
Of
wonderful.
the fatty things in our foods. Yeah,
so it was like a big plus for everybody. Yeah. But there went butter.
Yeah.
Right?
So they substituted
fats.
fat with sugar.
Yeah.
Okay. And they found that the more sugar we could eat, more sugar in a particular food product, the more we liked it up to a certain point.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
The bliss point. Yeah.
The bliss point.
Yeah.
A certain
right amount of fat, salt, and sugar. Yeah.
Okay.
Hitting that bliss point, and that's food science. That's so not fair.
Yeah. So we started eating tremendous amounts of sugar.
Well, and also things that it's not really food, right? Because you have this. The Industrial Revolution followed by the ability to preserve food and send it off. In order to do that, you got to take the fiber out, right? If you want to increase the shelf life of a particular product, you got to get rid of the fiber. For example, flour. You got to get rid of the fiber, otherwise the bran in it, and there's a little bit of oil in wheat that'll make it go rancid. Mm-hmm. So when you take all that out, get rid of the fiber, get rid of all the nutrients, and just store straight flour, is very nutrient poor, by the way, which is a lot of all your baked goods, right? And noodles and whatnot. So you just have flour. And that really is just a famine food. That was really the whole agricultural revolution, and 12,000 years ago, it was to be able to fend us off against the famine. This is our storage food, right? So we were able to survive, right? And that was about calories. But what's really interesting about this saturated fat, and we're demonizing it, is that we actually had information that when you reduce the saturated fat, you didn't improve the outcome. Because if saturated fat really caused death, then we should be able to create studies, be able to go, let's prove it. Saturated fat causes cardiovascular disease. Well, there's some crooked people out there. So, or scientists that were expecting something else. And here's where science gets muddy. Where if you're out to set something as true, and it doesn't show as true, you should still publish your results.
Yes.
Okay. Before the year 2000, you have to publish positive as well as negative results. You don't have to do that anymore. So
you don't have
to do that anymore.
Negative results any longer.
No, there was a Minnesota Heart Survey.
Is that true?
Yeah. So there's a Minnesota Heart Survey. Oh, we'll get to that. Okay. Remind me of Sanofi in 2008.
Okay.
So the Minnesota Heart Survey was with mentally ill patients that you could house them. And nutritional studies are very difficult to do because the best way to do it is house them. You need to house them because you don't want them snacking and whatnot. Okay. So they had all these patients. And when they took the saturated fat from 18% to 9%, actually increased their risk for a cardiovascular disease. But the principal investigator didn't publish the results for 16 years. And when he did, he put in a very obscure article, very obscure journal. So when asked, like, hey, why didn't you produce your results? He's like, well, it didn't show what we thought it was going to show us. That's not what we expected.
But it's still results.
Yeah, but you took $2.3 million from the NIH grant money to be able to fund this study, right? You're going to spend, we have spent a fortune trying to prove that saturated fat causes cardiovascular disease, and there's nothing there. There is zero, literally zero. Matter of fact, the opposite is true.
Really?
Saturated fat should not be demonized. Animal meat is not the bane of our existence. It's probably the carbohydrates, okay? And probably, to be more specific, sugar. Okay. So you took the saturated fat out, you added sugar, 1980 food pyramid, nothing but obesity since then. We've reduced our saturated fat, but here we are.
It is true. We are getting more and more obese as time goes by, even as we exercise more and we're eating, a low-fat diet as we're supposed to. We, as our society knows to do certain things like exercise, and we do, and yet that trend just keeps getting bigger and bigger.
That's a really important point, because it's really frustrating and it's not fair that we are saying the perfect thing, which is eat less and move more, but you're not doing it. You're the problem. You're not the problem. You're the victim, unfortunately, because the opposite would be true. That's exactly what my patients enjoy, as well as myself. I mean, do your own experiments. It's amazing. You actually, by eating less, okay, by reducing your carbohydrates, you'll be able to eat less and move a lot more, because you've got energy to burn. That is controlled by hormones. Your body weight's controlled by hormones. There's a hormone that allows you eat less and move more.
You're saying if you eat the typical American diet,
you're going to be slow
and you are
and
slow,
hungry,
lethargic, hungry, brain fog. Okay, it happens to all of us from time to time. Okay?
Yeah, that's been proven too.
That's not your fault. That's the fault of your diet.
It is the fault of your diet. But I think what's important, that the message we get across, like, it's not your doctor's fault because he didn't know, he wasn't trained. It's not the American people's fault because they didn't know, right? We think we're doing the right thing.
Yes.
Okay? But it's not their fault that they don't want to go to the gym. That you don't feel like going and go, let's go walk off this 50 pounds or whatever you want to walk off. You're going to be walking forever.
Yes.
Matter of fact, the more you walk, the more efficient you're going to become at that walk, and you're going to be burning less calories. Because we're stuck and fixated on the calories in, calories out model. The human body, way more complicated than calories in, calories out. This is a lot more than just a thermodynamic problem that we have here. Okay? It's what is our response to the foods that either make us hungry and hungrier, or make us not want to move. It's kind of sad that we could move more, much easier. It's not actually under much of your control. Just by changing your diet, you'll actually just automatically start moving, because you have to. You're going to start getting warmer, right? You're going to start burning energy in the form of fat, right? You'll be burning fat, and you're wasting it off in the way of ketones. You're spewing it through your breath as well as urinating it out, and your body's just generating heat. Your body has the ability to change its efficiency. That's crazy.
Okay. How long has science known this now? Because
it's a very short period of time. Yeah, it's not.
All right.
Well, no, like I said before, it was 1800s. But now we have all the details.
Yes, and we have the tests. We understand.
We have
better
an understanding of
hormones
hormones now. Yeah.
And there are going to be advances still, of course.
There's many randomized controlled trials, studies, double-blinded, that show that when people reduce their carbohydrate and they go on a very low-carb, healthy fat diet, that they lose weight. Okay, that their A1C improves, their blood pressure improves, sleep improves, knee pain seems to improve. Can we talk about my neighbor for a second?
Oh, okay.
He's really cool. I know, I love my neighbor, and I want him on this show.
Okay.
He needed to qualify for a surgery. So I put the continuous glucose monitor on, and we were able to look at his blood sugar, and his pain started going away. And it qualified him for a knee surgery. He has lost a bunch of weight, just got his knee replaced. He's rocking it.
What was it that disqualified him for the knee surgery?
His A1C above 8, so his blood sugar was too high. We needed to get it down.
Okay.
So I got him off of his medications through him learning and understanding what foods did what to his blood sugar. So when he realized, hey, if I follow the food pyramid, if I go on this low-fat, high-carb diet, that my blood sugar is going to go up. On majority of my diet is going to be carbohydrates, which is 50 to 60% of your diet as carbohydrates. Doesn't make a lot of sense because you don't have the ability to store that much carbohydrates, right?
Right.
You have the ability to store fat, but
Yeah.
you don't have the ability to store the carbohydrates.
Right. So, what you're telling me reminds me of something. How we are moving as a society that has known for a long time that a certain particular diet, like the very high sugar diet and high carbohydrate diet that we consume now, is bad for us. Okay, we didn't always really take it seriously, or it was not top of mind, but it's becoming more and more important in society. And this is what it reminds me of. It reminds me of the way that we looked at smoking at one time. And this is a huge a health success story in the United States, which led the world to...
Yeah, we did a great job.
We did.
We did.
Okay.
The smoking cessation worked.
But we had to battle against the tobacco companies, okay, who put out a lot of false information, okay? But we eventually succeeded in getting the vast majority of Americans to stop smoking. And we've done, it's a huge success story. And it reminds me, can we do the same thing with sugar in the United States?
I think the sugar may follow in those footsteps of tobacco. This may end up in some lawsuits. This may end up in some taxes. This could get pretty crazy. And the tobacco and sugar industry they're quite knowledgeable on what they're doing and what could be ahead for them.
They've had a long time to prepare.
Yeah.
Okay. And the whole food industry is, of course, huge in agriculture. Okay, there's a lot of money for lobbyists.
Yeah.
Okay.
This would be a huge change.
It's going
this
to
would
be
be
an
a
uphill battle.
massive change. And this is where I feel like information is key. Information is a tool that we have, and we need to get as much information into as many people as possible. We need people to learn and understand, and that's where what I was telling you, that glucose monitor works so good, because education. What did that do? I'm educated now. I know not to eat those foods. And it's the experience that people will hopefully share as they learn that the food pyramid got us nowhere. That's a huge experiment gone wrong.
Okay.
How can we turn this around? Is by educating people, having them realize that there's a way back. There's a way back to
where
lose
can people
weight.
go to educate themselves if they're watching our program and they want to learn more?
Start reading some cool books.
Okay, like?
Yeah, Gary Taub's Good Calories, Bad Calories. Anything on YouTube with certain, I guess we could put a link in the description below or something. We could talk about all these books and whatnot. There's information out there, and it's remarkable.
And if someone just wanted the very basics, what should I be eating? Okay, if man talks to his wife, vice versa. What we're going to have for dinner tonight, what do you recommend?
What would be on the menu for me? It's going to be probably a steak with some butter, maybe some mushrooms. Skip the sides.
It's going to be.
You don't need the sides. You don't need carbs.
You don't need the carbs that are in the sides.
It's so much easier to cook too.
You don't want the baked potato. You don't want the roll. Okay.
Yeah. Here comes Thanksgiving, huh? Whew.
Yeah, and we just went through Halloween.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother story, but.
Yeah, half of the weight gain is in the last 6 weeks of the year.
Is it?
Yeah, and people do lose most of the weight in January.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Yeah. Half of the weight, that's quite the stress. People are more likely to move in January.
Yeah. Wow. Thanks, Kyle. Very enlightening.
Yeah, thank you. That was fun.
We're going to do it again.
Cool.
That was episode 2.
Okay.
So people should tune in where they can and watch for episode 3 coming up.
Stay informed. Learn.
Yes.
Educate yourself.
All right. Thanks for watching. What's your program called? The Unscripted Pharmacist.
Unscripted Pharmacist.